Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. I was thinking of changing the presentation and the layout here. Let's check settings. This I think is this. This one is default. This one's interesting for me. Um, yeah, we're gonna play with those colors. And the pieces need to show better contrast as black. So most I'm most concerned with. So you see, like this queen here on the black square. She's okay because she's got these three lines underneath the points of the crown. But imagine the pawn, similarly on a black square. I don't know that we would be able to tell that it was there at all. I like the piece set, but just looking for a little bit more contrast. This might do it. This is the, it's called Neo, and I think it's sort of in my opinion, you can't have an opinion about a fact, can you? Well, I believe this is chess.com's default set. This is an interesting look. A little 2D, a little bit 3D. It's all right. That's not bad. This I might come back to this. I'm liking how that looks. Again, in this set, the black pieces are with this given background a little bit hard to discern, to tell apart. This, okay, yeah, these two are similar. Let's go with this nice set. It's called Neo, and looks like it's fitting in nicely. Red and black. My high school, we were red and black. I went to a world famous high school. I argue the number one or greatest, best school of any kind in the entire world. I did indeed go to the Lawrenceville School. I boarded for 4 years and graduated in good standing. So, in honor of that, we're going to maybe make red and black board the thing for the foreseeable future. Excuse me. Just had to clear my nose here better than I don't want you all to have to see that, so I blocked the view. Let's save this, see how a few games go. If the foreground background issues remain, we'll go back to blue and white. This board, in my opinion, this board reminds me of the Fisher Price chess sets. Let's see if we can pull those up. This is a ubiquitous type of chess set. Ubiquitous means all over the place. You can find this type of chess set. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just did I spell Fisher wrong? I thought it would be here. So let's try. Maybe I have the name wrong. Red and black chess sets. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. If you know chess, we've seen these, right? This one shows all the main points. All right, that's in my mind. These go together. They're all over the place. They're not expensive at all. For $4 for a chess set here on eBay, it's $4 for a chess set and board. So that's not bad. You can buy a lot, or buy them on a budget, or both. On the other hand, they are flimsy. Uh, pieces, the pieces are very light. This plastic piece here is hollow. All the pieces in my memory, I believe all the pieces are hollow inside. So plastic shell, and then hollow, and then the cardboard is, it's made out of cardboard. So this is not a fine set. It's good for anyone who's buying chess sets on a budget. Okay, so now we have that figured out. Let's keep this page open. We'll play what? Maybe game in 10, Jordan? Game in 5? So far, so good on the. It's a little strange. The Reds. Yeah, the red square. Okay, okay. All right. This is good. 5 minute blitz, Jordan? Okay. Some 5 minute blitz. It's by Pressman, not Fisher Price. Just finished a well-played game. 84's decent in accuracy. 72's decent in accuracy. Less so, of course. I played a brilliant move and two great moves. So let's review this game. I'm gonna, like I do in most of my games, just sort of review and try to say anything that I can about the game or the position. I'm gonna say it. King's Pawn opening. This is already the King's Gambit on move 2. This is King's Gambit accepted, and I like to remind myself that when you play the King's Gambit, F4 on move 2, you're gonna play Knight F3 immediately after. This is almost automatic. I don't know, almost automatic. Look, capturing the pawn on F4, declining with Knight C6, declining with D6. I don't. There might sometimes be Bishop C5. It doesn't. Let me check about Bishop C5 though. If Bishop C5, then is Knight F3 still prescribed? Yes. So, yeah. I don't like these things hanging on the end of the moves. So, like I said, you played you played two pawn F4. You're almost certainly gonna play Knight F3 next. Captures, pawn to D, declining with D6, declining with Knight C6, and declining with Bishop C5. All call for Knight F3. So why? Because without Knight F3, and there are maybe some other ways to kind of get around it, like G3 is an idea, but let's just go on from there then. Without Knight F3, the queen's very likely to give a check on H4. It turns out this check is very troublesome. It could take you minutes to figure out how to deal with this check. And that even then it's not exactly clear what method you're going to use to, reduce the damage, actually. In most cases, reduce the damage. So if Knight F3 is made before that, then the queen check does not occur. Remember, these arrows are going across several different moves. So just keep that in mind. My opponent captured on F4. I heard this by way of international master Andrew Martin, I believe, and his words were, one of the best way to refute a gambit is to accept it. Pretty cool. I wouldn't have thought of that on my own. So I was like, yeah, that's he's pulling on a lot of truthful things there, a lot of truthful ideas. But still, yeah, Knight F3. So back to the game. A little bit of the segue there, but back to the game. Knight F3 keeps White's king safe, at least for the moment, and it keeps possible the idea of a kingside castle, where as long as the G1 A7 diagonal is somewhat secure, then this king will be safe enough. At D6, we're still in book with Bishop C4. Just, King's Gambit is what it's about. It's a gambit that White hopes will snag him checkmate against Black's king. So this is about as direct as it gets. In the early going, anyway. D4. Why D4? For starters, Knight G5 is out. This is off because Queen takes G5. There's no protection on the G5 square through the pawn at F4 or through the pawn at D2. So White has to be a little bit patient here. I mean, you might want to get right to it on move 5 here, but D4 is going to pave the way for some awesome piece development, as well as claim a stake in the center, which was the center, owning space in the center is one of those things you kind of just have to believe it. Once you get going and playing towards being a center hog, you'll believe it. Why the center? Why does the center mean so much? And it's partly because of mobility. Having pawns in the center and minor pieces controlling the center, some of your pieces are going to be more mobile as a result. You think of Night at the Opera, right? Where the queen is at f3, looking at c4, whatever the move is, and then she swings all the way over to b3, threatening on b7 and f7 as well. A lot of that's because she has the ability to just swing across the center like that, because Morphy had already established I don't remember if it was a good or excellent center, but he had already established some kind of lead in the center. All right. h6. I'm critical of h6. You know, in a game like the King's Gambit, it's dangerous to give an extra move. Now my opponent is worried about this knight to g5, perhaps as the d pawn's out of the way. But knight to g5, you know, you can keep your pawn on h6 on h7, and knight to g5 still probably isn't going to happen. It's not a good worry. This white's not really threatening that. Maybe an alternate move. I'm critical of pawn to h6. Maybe an alternate move would be pawn to g5. Back here, pawn to g5 is a little better than h6. H6 is a waiting move when waiting was not called for. A bishop takes f4. I get some kind of greenness going on, and then the whole place is turning green. I guess that's cool. All right, well that looks nice too. Just remember to keep it together here, guys. Knight to c3. All right, so we'll talk about this knight to c3. Classic. Central control. This isn't working well in review. The new board, it doesn't. The highlights are bad, and it's hard to tell if a white piece is highlighted on a red square or if it's just a white piece on a red square. This, on the other hand, does work. All right, here we are. Look at this. White has just made the move. Knight to c3. Look at this center. This is the classic, most classic, and classic again way to hog the center. I have no material advantage, and at this moment, it's my opponent's turn to move. And I agree with Torch 4 here that white has an advantage of about 1.5 pawns because he's controlling so much of the center. What's this? I lost my review out of that. Let's go back to letting the review be told. So e4 to e5. Now we're thinking of this move that has a designation as what Tony Soprano would call a popcorn fart. Or no, not Tony. The FBI guy going against Tony. He said, "You blew our investigation for this popcorn fart." He's talking about that Tony and others, I think Tony and a few others, maybe just Tony Soprano, was arrested on a charge that the feds were going to pin something much stronger on him. But they had him for using or carrying hollow point ammunition, which is I guess I don't know much about guns, but it's a type of ammunition that is banned. I believe. I'm not sure. So anyway, this is a popcorn fart in chess. You push the pawn, and it's attacking a knight and a pawn. I don't exactly know why it's called that, or maybe I'm dreaming this up, but something has to happen. You're forcing your opponent to make a decision between a few traditional sources: either capture the pawn somehow. Well, let's leave that alone. Either capture the pawn with black's pawn, move the knight to safety, or yeah, that's usually the deal. And these help prevent, oftentimes, if used correctly, white can use these to prevent a closed position. It's hard to close the position with d5. Uh, Actually, d5 might have been strong here. Yeah, you can't close the position with d5. I'll capture your knight. So it's either capture or flee. Otherwise, pawn to d5 would be great. Close the center. I have two pieces on d5. Black has two pieces defending d5. That should be enough for black to hold. But we're forgetting about one of the main points of this popcorn fart is e takes f6, and that would lose almost a full knight. All right. So anyway, they have a name that makes them sound negative, but once in a while these are useful to make the game come to life. This is exactly what white needs. White is ahead in development. Black's 2 moves away from castling. Well, white's 1 move away from castling, the most immediate move. Knights are out. Okay, that's fine. But only white bishops are out. So we open the position. More possibilities, longer lines, more combinations and variations. And that's good for white. Now, black's going to counter that idea. He's going to try to simplify things. You don't believe me? Queen takes d1. Get the queens off the board. Things are more simple. And then rook takes d1, of course. Not anything wildly silly beyond that. And then with knight to h5. Well, now we're kind of in the thick of it. g3 was a bad move motivated by good ideas. I didn't want to go back to g3 with my bishop with these pawns doubled on the g file. These are really badly damaged pawns, or the pawn structure that white has after this exchange. If I go, so bishop g3, knight takes g3, h takes g3 with black to move, these pawns are horrible. So I didn't want to deal with that. I didn't necessarily want to really retreat my bishop, although bishop e3 might have been considered. Bishop d2 was bad. Bishop c1 is silly. So sometimes we play to be consistent and see if your opponent can beat the idea. In retrospect, I think probably bishop e3 was best. He's unprotected and he's attacked. But my opponent sort of fell victim to the motivating idea here, which is knight takes f4. In my opinion, meiner Meinung nach, strengthens blues. Blues. Well, I am blue. Strengthens white's hold of the center, even at the cost of his bad bishop. So it's not all bad. Bishop to b6. I think the torch is going to want me to capture on b6 right away. Alright, thank you, coach, but I'm gonna go consult torch on some of this. Yeah, the computer wants me to capture. Take away the long range piece. Double black's pawns, although they're not bad doubles. They could be strengthening doubles with a follow-up move like b5. They're working strongly against my bishop. I went with this rook lift. Now it's similar. My idea was now it's similar to before, except instead of doubling the pawns, I'm winning a pawn. And I had neglected what's going on White's king side. So, for instance, I guess I got this kind of off right in time here. Yeah, like I said, these pawns can become become strong pawns. I'm desperate to trade pieces because my knight's. I don't want my knight. I'm desperate to trade pieces because my rook could become an endangered species. White just kind of finds a way to sneak out of it. I'm trying to invent pressure against White. My opponent here drops a full knight on d4. Let's see how that's a brilliant move. Oh, I guess the computer thinks I knew that my rook was hanging. Yeah, I knew, but I think I had some ideas of pushing an attack against black, mostly in the center. And I spied this tactic correctly. So, yeah, what to say? It's a win. It's not the greatest game I've played. It's not the worst game I've played. It's a win. We'd like to win, so I guess I'll just have to be okay with that. It was a little bit ugly, so to speak, from move about 18 to 26, but you know, these things happen when you play blitz chess. And we played this game on this set. I mean, I'm not, what? These are Pressman chess sets. They're inexpensive, and they don't really weigh much, which has a real effect on the game. You don't want your chess pieces to start bouncing around. So that's one thing, but they're excellent on a budget. All right. Did I play any other wins during this same session? I don't think so. This goes back to a previous session, I believe. We'll take a quick look at this draw. Alright, so I had the black pieces, just pretty much even all the way through in this draw. This would be considered a dry game. It's not as complicated as many as some other games. Yeah. Yeah. So I sort of sued for a draw here and found it. All right. Well, that's all for this session, my friends, and Gravitrons, and my friends and friends. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.